Hi there, and welcome back to my Japan-themed bullet journal. I will briefly show you my monthly spread and my weekly spreads for April, and then you will see the speed painting for the cover. As I mentioned in March, I have a busy April, so I focus on having a very large design with minimal space used for decoration. To save time, I also used a calendar stamp at the top left and stamps for the names of the days, and also some stencils that I rediscovered in a drawer. After using a lot of yellow in the previous months, I wanted to go with green for a bit of spring. My layout is really simple. I just split each page into quarters. I've used this in a previous bullet journal and it's super fast to set up, but also easy to personalize. You can easily move the elements around and add little decorative ribbons at the top, bottom, sides or in the middle. In this case I kept it very simple though and just varied the fonts on each page. For my cover I wanted something that would fit with the spring theme, so I decided to paint my favorite Japanese castle, which is Himeji Castle in the city of Himeji. This is a bit of an unusual choice because April is usually strongly associated with the cherry tree blossoms in Japan. And for good reason. Even on national TV you will see a forecast when the cherry trees in your region are going to start blossoming. Now there is a big tradition of going out during cherry tree blossom season with your friends and sitting underneath the trees on a blue plastic tarp and getting drunk. And I'm afraid, since I lived in Tokyo at that time, that is my main association of cherry tree blossom season now. For that reason, I wanted to paint something different, and that is how we ended up with this castle. Himeji Castle is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and in fact was one of the first places in Japan to receive this designation. Himeji is very easy to reach. It's along the Shinkansen line from Osaka and Kyoto west to Hiroshima. I've been there twice, in 2015 and 2018, and I'd go back anytime because it's just a wonderful experience. The complex is very large though, and the castle has many floors, so there's a lot of walking involved. My reference image is from the trip in 2015. It was taken from the direction of the gardens. The castle is located on a hill, and the first structure was built here in 1333, and it was then rebuilt as a castle in 1346 and remodeled into Himeji Castle 2 centuries later. It was remodeled again and again, and the complex that we know today was created in 1601 to 1609. It has remained intact despite bombings during World War II and natural disasters, and the castle complex is comprised of 83 structures. It is considered to be one of Japan's 3 premier castles and is the castle with most visitors each year. There are tons of things to explore in the surrounding gardens and buildings, and the view from the castle at the top is great as well. For March's cover I used a fine liner to outline a koi fish, and I thought that worked very well on this paper. In this case I decided to only use the fine liner for areas that are in shadow, instead of outlining the entire castle. I normally don't start with the darkest area when working with watercolors, but I thought it would be helpful to use a waterproof marker here just to make sure I wouldn't lose these lines later on. It is also super easy to kind of get lost with your eyes when working on this castle because there's so many little rooftops everywhere, and I was hoping the fine liner lines would give me a visual guideline for my later painting stages. I'm somewhat familiar with painting this castle because a few years ago I started sketching it in gouache, but I actually haven't finished it yet. I've also drawn it once from a slightly different perspective with water-soluble pencils in my Etcher Signature Series sketchbook, and you can see it if you look through the review for that. What I find a bit tricky with this castle and also other Japanese structures is that from our point of view from the ground, we can often see large parts of the wooden beams that are supporting the roofs, and it can be quite tricky to figure out if you should paint them and in what detail. In the case of Himeji Castle, they are rather light, but they are underneath the darker sections of the roof. And those darker sections also curl up at the edges of the roof. Even though I find it tricky to paint, I really love this architecture. My paints that I'm using here are from a rather vibrant palette that I put together with Mission Gold and Holbein paints. So these are Korean and Japanese respectively. I did a really good job centering the April before I went over it with a white marker, and then I think I messed something up and it ended up way more on the right side than it did before. My white pen also leaked a little, so I ended up making everything a little bit thicker to make this less obvious. So here are all of my pages for April again. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching. Bye.